So welcome to Buddha Bits number 3. I actually took that from a Canadian Tim Hortons, Buddha Bits, Tim Bits. Anyway, I wanted to talk today about just being empathetic or being sensitive. One thing that you could say is that when you practice just even mindfulness, inevitably you will become more sensitive to things going on around you. And that's just sort of part of the package, but it also means you're more alive. So it's not bad to be more sensitive, but the thing is you will see things and maybe empathize a lot more easily and actually maybe more intensively than you might normally. Because, if you're just sort of not very mindful, you see something bad, but you immediately think, oh, I have to go somewhere, I have to do something. So your lack of being present to the moment allows you to escape that sensitivity or that empathy with maybe something that's painful. Whereas if you are being mindful and trying to engage life from moment to moment, then when you see something painful, and if you have some sensitivity, you go, oh, that must really hurt, and then it can be quite a strong sensation. I've explained some of this before, but I'll just repeat it because some of you might not have heard. But I had a student actually in Florida in the United States, and she'd retired, and she basically said, "Oh, now I can meditate all I want." So she took her wardrobe closet and emptied it out. It was quite big, and made it her altar. And she'd go in there, she'd shut the door, and she'd do 2 or 3 hours of meditation every morning, which is wonderful. She was just so happy. But then as time passed, because in her other time she did a volunteer work at a house for women to take shelter, and after some time she found she couldn't do that work anymore. It was a bit too much for her to hear the stories of these women and what had happened to them, and so she had to quit that job. But she continued her meditation, and she meditated a lot. 2-3 hours every day, really good, Vajrasattva and other things, maybe mindfulness, whatever. And then after some time, she became, again, let's say more sensitive. And she said she couldn't go to the store in the middle of the day because she found just the people and the intensity and the cars and the road and everything was just too much. And so she ended up going early in the morning before anybody was there so she could buy her groceries and such and things. And so she said, oh, gee, I'm actually avoiding things, not so good. Anyway, but she was very compassionate. And so she and her husband would go and buy big bags of dog food and go to a place where a lot of stray dogs would conglomerate and then put bowls of dog food out for them to eat and such. And so her sort of compassionate activity was very nice. But one day when she was stepping out of her house onto her balcony, she tripped and twisted her ankle really badly. And so she had to get taken to the hospital. And so she arrives at the hospital. And of course, what is a hospital but a place just full of sick people and suffering people? So she said she arrived there. She sat there for a few minutes. She couldn't take it. It was just too much, overwhelming her, all of the things that were happening around her. So she said, husband, take me home. And she went back home. And that's when she called me. She said, I'm meditating 3 hours a day. Supposedly I'm becoming more enlightened, and I'm just totally becoming, antisocial. I can't spend time with anybody. So I said, well, what you have is that you're developing a really high level of sensitivity and empathy, which is very good, but you're not having the technique to deal with that sensitivity and empathy. And I gave the example of like a road bump. So if you have a road bump, you come along and you hit the road bump, you go up. Of course, then you accelerate and you go over it and you pass by. But what can happen is that you come along, you hit the road bump of, oh, this is a suffering situation, and rather than going over it by saying, oh, that money put me home for that, you recoil, and so therefore your empathy is causing you to withdraw, just to try to not recognize things, to try to avoid things, and that's not beneficial. Like you're not engaging your compassion. Whereas if you were to then you hit the toe or the bump of speed bump of some suffering situation, and they go, wow, all you have to do is start saying a prayer or something. And that's, you've gone over, you've hit a point where there's sort of, it's very painful for you to see it, but rather than recoiling, you go over. And this is where it's important. You don't have to be some incredible bodhisattva. All you have to do is one, just say a prayer. Om Mani Padme Hum, Om Tara Tara Turi Soha. That's a compassionate response. So rather than trying to ignore, not engage, not be involved, all you do is that, you flip into that. And I mean, if you could do a little more, you could hold someone's hand, give somebody a hug, good. Maybe you can say something, good, but it's not required of you. What you could say is not that it's a requirement, but it's rather just you respond with compassion. And of course, for us that are in Mahayana Buddhism, with whether it's Tara or whether it's Avalokiteshvara, so easy, just immediately flip into Mani Padme Hum. Or, may that person be free of suffering and the cause of suffering. Even if you're not a Buddhist, you can say that, So again, you've hit the bump of a sensitive situation. You're empathetic, you picked up on it, and then you went, may they be free of suffering and the cause of suffering. Om Mani Padme Hum. Or Tara is, may some enlightened circumstance come. That's sufficient. Of course, if you can do more, of course you do it. But if you can't, it's not like, again, it's a requirement. You do as you can. I saw this very vividly when I was in Delhi back in 2010. And Venerable Kadro, who's a very famous, Dakini within the FBMT and with Lama Zopa Rinpoche. And I was in the hotel, the Tibetan rest house that she was staying at. And in the morning, she had to go to the airport, and I had to go to the airport. So I got to go in the car with her, and she was in the front seat. And of course, as you drive through the streets of Delhi, you see all sorts of horrible things, people that are, with illnesses and stuff, or people beating their animals or whatever it might be. And I was just watching her, and she didn't ignore them. It's not like she was just sitting in the front seat of the car and not seeing anything. When she saw something, I could see her go, her mouth would start moving very quietly. She's saying a little prayer for that person, a prayer for this person. And I went, oh, interesting. And so anyway, I wanted to share that if you do meditate, mindfulness or others, and you're doing a reasonably good job, you will become sensitive. And you will be, by being sensitive, it means you will empathize with things that you see, because it's your consciousness cognizes, engages that. And you're no longer ignoring it or immune to it, like you say, oh wow, And so therefore, you can, if you don't do anything, you're going to recoil, and therefore then you become dysfunctional. What you want to do is to engage, whether Mani Padme Hum, Tara, or whatever else you could possibly do. Of course, don't put the let's say the level of being a Mother Teresa on yourself. That would be unbeneficial. Just know that if you have some ability, do something, and if you don't, then you don't. Okay. So anyway, that's what I want. That's the Buddha bit for today. Sensitivity, empathy, and compassion. Okay, so take very good care. Wishing you well, and goodbye from Champa.